Okay. Hello, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to Design Advisory Panel, July 23, 2026. Can I first get a motion to approve today's agenda as presented? Yeah, Angie, seconder Harry, all in favor? Thank you very much. Okay. As second, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from Design Advisory Panel on May 28th, 2026? And because it's been such a while, I'll just remind you the two projects. It was the industrial project on 901 Mon Road and kind of T-shaped infill building by the hospital at 1691 Boundary Avenue. Can I please get a motion to approve those minutes? Thank you, Harry. Seconder. Kate, and all in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, so we have one presentation this evening for a multi-family project on 6060 Nelson Road. So Morgan Paymont, our planner 2 of current planning, will introduce this project. This will be followed by a presentation. Then the panel will have the opportunity to ask questions of city staff, and then the panel will provide questions and feedback for the presenters. Please go ahead, Morgan Paymont.
Thank you, Chair. Before I start, it looks like most people have their camera or their names, but if you're on the design panel, please make sure your camera's on, and if you're an applicant or presenter, please have your change your display name to your first and last name for minute taking. Thank you. This project is Development Permit Application DP 1412, and it's for a multifamily residential development at 6060 Nelson Road. It also has a concurrent rezoning application to rezone the property to the row house residential R7 zone. The proposal includes 27 townhouse units in 5 buildings across the site, as well as a 36-unit 3-story apartment building. There is also parking on a portion of the ground floor. The units along the south and east of sides of the apartment building are accessed externally, creating a ground-oriented building form. The property is designated within Development Permit Area 8, Form and Character, and the city's Form and Character design guidelines apply. There are also a few variances requested, one to reduce the required minimum front yard setback from 3 meters to 2.18 meters for Townhouse Building 2 in the drawings, if you're looking for that, and to increase the maximum permitted height of a principal building from 10.5 meters to 12 meters for the upper portion of the roof peak of the apartment building, Building 1 in the center of the site. And finally, variance request to increase the maximum permitted height of retaining walls and fences up to 1 meter. So increasing those varies across the site, but to a maximum of 1 meter greater than they are allowed. I'm happy to take any questions following the applicant's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Morgan. And who will be presenting this evening? Krithi? Okay,
Yeah.
Please go ahead and share your screen when you're ready.
Will do. Okay, so in this proposal, we're presenting sort of this development where we have a total of 63 units. As Morgan mentioned, 27 of them are townhouse style units and 36 are multi-family units. So the townhouse style units are located all along the peripheral edge of the site, and the multifamily building is located in the center. In terms of the site plan, we sort of have our access road going all around, accessing all of the buildings and providing access to the central building as well. The central building is accessed, the parkade is accessed from the rear, both here and here. And we have sort of a parkade located in this building, as well as some studio units and some utilities as well in the central building. In terms of the townhouses, all along the edge, a majority of these townhouses are two-level units. Some of them, including Building 3 and some units on Building 2, are three-level. The central building, which is the multifamily building, is three-level. But because we have some amount of grade, some portions of the multifamily building and the parkade are below grade, and the parking is not visible from the street. In terms of amenities, we have some zones located here, here, and this central courtyard here, as well as some sort of natural play area here and here, where we also have some amount of retained trees from what is originally there. In terms of the unit design itself of the townhouses, they're fairly straightforward. You sort of have one level with the bedrooms and one level with the living space connected by a stair. In terms of the multifamily building, let me just show you what that looks like. So this is level 1. You have the parkade at the back here. You have some units and some utilities in the front here. The main entrance of this building is in this central zone, accessed through the courtyard at the back here. A lot of these units have access to the front facing Nelson. Now this is level 2. Here we have in these two wings at the back, we have our traditional sort of apartment style units. We have 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, as well as 3 bedroom units located here. This front section here is a slightly different unit style. It's sort of like a combination of a townhouse style and apartment style building. They live across 2 levels with a stair connecting them. So that makes them sort of like a townhouse, but they also are, each of those levels are accessible by an elevator at the back here. So you can see this on level 2. So this would be the first level of these front units. And then the second level can also be accessed by the elevator. So this sort of makes this a slightly unique product where it's a townhouse style building living across 2 levels, can be accessed by the elevator on both levels. Let me just move to the 3D model and zoom out to give you a bit of an overview. So here you can see all around the outer edge are the townhouse style buildings, and the central building is the multifamily building. Now here we've made a big effort to make sure that these buildings don't look, the central building especially doesn't look like a large apartment building, but more so looks like a continuation of the townhouses that you see around. So if you look at this building, the front portion of the building, like if I zoom into this corner here, you can see 2 levels. You can also see sort of access to the lower level from the street on the front here, as well as on the side here. This makes this building be sort of perceived as more as a 2-level building. But if I turn around here, you can see sort of access to the rear, and this now reads more like a 3-level building with access to the parking from the back, and that's because of the way the grade changes across the building there. Some of these townhouse buildings are also 3-level. For example, this building here looks 2-level from the front, but as the grade drops, we're able to add in an additional level over here, and that's something that you can see on this building as well. 3-level at the back and 2-level in the front here. One of the other things that we've done is sort of the way the roof lines have been created to create sort of more of an individual feel to each of the unit types as compared to an apartment style building, which might look more imposing. This one has been broken down in such a way that each of these buildings reads more like an individual townhouse rather than a large building. And where the building is 3 levels, we've made other efforts to break the building scale up. For example, in this zone, we have landscaping as well as architectural elements to break the building down. In terms of the massing, we've sort of tried to use a stepped approach where we've created larger setbacks. On the sides, for example, these setbacks are required to be 1.5 meters, but we have closer to like 4 meter setbacks. And the building itself as well steps. You can see the lower level steps compared to the upper level, and then you have the tallest building in the center. So as to minimize any sort of height impact that we might create, especially to the neighboring buildings. Finally, in terms of the data, we are within the allowable limits of FAR as well as lot coverage. As mentioned previously, we do have some variances in height as well as the front setback variance as well as the fence variance. We are providing more than the required amount of parking spaces. We have a 3-stream trash collection room located in the multifamily building, and we are providing sufficient bike parking as well. So finally, I think I'd like to conclude by saying that if you consider that, like if you consider the scenario where we had only townhouses on this lot, like all of these were townhouses, I think it would create a situation where only a certain type of buyer would be able to live in it. But by creating this more complex sort of multi-family structure in the middle, we're able to create a wider, a sort of broader range of people who might be able to consider living here. We have like studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, as well as this condo style building in the middle, all accessible through the elevator. And so I think that creates a more inclusive sort of environment and community rather than just sort of a townhouse style building. And I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Krithi. Is there anyone else from your team presenting the landscape plan or?
No, the landscape architect couldn't be here today, but I'm happy to see if I can answer some of those questions, or we can let Kara provide the feedback in the comprehensive letter.
Would you feel comfortable just giving us a quick overview of some of the interventions you guys are planning here? Some of the bigger
sure.
Landscape moves here?
I could do my best. So I think the traditional sort of pedestrian access, I think Kriti covered that quite well in terms of the studios, the 4 studios that are along here. All the units along the front edge actually come to grade. It's just the way the site plan gets cut because of the grades overall. The site is falling in this direction and in this direction. So all the units, I'd say, along Nelson Avenue have direct access from the road. And so we've spent a bunch of time to get the sidewalks in and to create that really nice connection point between that access and the street and the bike path that's happening along there. We've also taken a lot of time to look at the relationship of the grades adjacent to the property lines. So adjacent to this residential property here, we're sitting, if you look at the section DD, we're actually sitting quite a bit lower than that property. And so we've tried to use a step retaining wall and a fence to minimize any impact visually. And also our property isn't going to be, I kind of want to point that out because our property isn't, our townhome isn't sitting significantly higher than this other one and sort of dwarfing it. We're sitting quite a bit lower. And just to reiterate, we've added some additional setback there than what would typically be required. Same thing on this setback over here. If you look at it, we're trying to step it best we can and provide screening and landscaping between our development and the adjacent property next door. The sections that you'll see through there, I think, do a really nice job of explaining the conditions that are happening. And then lastly, we did, after our review with the community, we got feedback on wanting to try to retain as many significant trees as we could. So from our initial proposal to this one, we've actually reduced some unit count and come back in and looked at retaining areas. This one was always being retained, but where could we retain trees in areas that were beneficial for the project and for the trees that were actually there. And we've spent a bunch of time doing our best to do some tree retention in areas, especially areas that are adjacent to the neighboring properties, because we know that will have an impact on them. And then I think the other stuff in terms of amenity is pretty self-explanatory. We've tried to, create a bit of a natural path through the retained trees. We have more formal amenity in this residential building, and then a bit of a pocket park here to provide some more amenity for this project. We're just down the street from the school as well, so whatever we're not hitting here, we would be able to embrace the fact that just a quick jaunt across the street would give you access to large playing fields and playgrounds. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
It does. Thank you, Joyce. I'll open up the panel for questions of the city. Does anyone have any questions? If you wouldn't mind, please closing your screen so I can see everybody. Yes. Does anyone have any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none. Angie, would you like to lead with some feedback today?
Sure. Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks for the presentation. I think it was great to go through the details there. It helped to understand the different grades that are happening and all the changes in the site. I really like the courtyard. I think it aligns well with our guidelines and what we're trying to create for these spaces. So that's great. I like the street access as well from the units. I was curious if the units on the courtyard, if they also have access to the ground level there. I don't know.
Yeah, they don't because of the grade. Because the parkade is actually on one portion of it, like partially underground, and then the other parkade is out of ground. So unfortunately, the courtyard is adjacent to the parking.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, sounds good. And then in terms of some thoughts that may be worth considering is maybe just like some distinction between the different townhome groups, whether it's, through colors or different changes of materials. I didn't notice if there was a distinction between the three groups of them there. So maybe just to help with some wayfinding, or I don't know, some different methods might be considered as well, just to help differentiate between the groups. And then on the south and west facades, maybe considering, I did notice there are some architectural elements that may provide some shading, but maybe just think about that, especially on the south and west sides there, just as it's a bit more, has a bit more of an impact there. I think otherwise, just it sounds like you're taking, care to consider the privacy for the other adjacent properties. And I think that would be something it'd be interesting it's great that I think that some trees are being retained, and maybe just to see kind of if there's something new being proposed as well between those buildings that would provide some privacy and separation. It's great to see that there's those trees are being retained as well.
Okay, thank you, Angie, for your feedback. Harry, would you be able to go next, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Overall, like form and character, I think that's a strong response to a difficult site. The sloping and stepping the buildings look great, and Nelson Road frontage, it's a great streetscape. Looks good. The only comment I have is along with Angie is all the 6 buildings that are quite similar. Like Guideline 3417 encourages distinguished buildings in multifamily developments for wayfinding. So I think a little bit more variation in materials or colors or entry features would strengthen the project for sure. Landscape, retained trees is a nice touch, and the landscape buffer. I just wanted to ask about the park next door, the Turner Carlton Park. Did you think about adding like a pedestrian connection there, or is the grade too steep?
That's the one in the back corner.
Back left, the back corner, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very steep.
Yeah, that was my thought. I went by there the other day and I thought, could they do that or not? But
yeah, I know that there was some initial discussion to do that, but it didn't really work out when we investigated it in the beginning.
Okay, that was my thoughts on that too. so it'll make it impractical, basically. Where you got the little play space, maybe do a pedestrian crossing to the main apartment building. That would be my only comment there on landscape and variances. I support your setback and height variances. Like, it's going to encourage a better roof form with that additional height. And besides that, that's all I got. It's a good proposal. I like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry, for your feedback. Kate, could you please go ahead?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Yeah, I agree with all the comments that have been said, so I won't repeat any of them. Some additional ones. This is going from a very permeable site to a very impermeable site, so it would be great to see some more attention paid to permeable pavers, which is in the design guidelines, especially for the amount of asphalt that's been being shown on the plan. Same thing, same vein, on-site infiltration. I know limited, but I don't see any rain gardens or any sort of infiltration using of the planting. So I'd recommend the addition of that again to try and infiltrate some of that rainwater on the site itself. The write-up discusses and talks about pedestrian circulation being the primary route and vehicular circulation being secondary, which I really appreciate. I would like to see that then, though, with some sort of, even if it's pavement marking or something, connecting the driveways on the outside ring to the inside. It looks like there's just a circulation on the inside, but most of the entrances for the townhouses don't have any sort of pedestrian circulation without crossing the road itself. What else? The interior courtyard is going to be a full shade situation, which I think is just the reality of trying to increase the density. So my recommendation is to look at the plant species that are being suggested in that area because of the full shade condition, as well as a recommendation to look at the programming of that space a little bit more. Right now, it looks like it's a lot of planting and trees in an already fully shaded space. So that might be a really good area for children's play that needs shade, but not necessarily needing more trees and benches on top of an already shaded courtyard. Really appreciate the tree retention, as that was said, and the integration of informal play is great through the existing trees. Yeah, and then I really second Harry's comment on some variability in materials and colors. Would be really nice to see. That's everything.
Thank you, Kate, for the thoughtful feedback. Just to clarify, you were thinking maybe the children's play space would be better suited in the central courtyard, and then maybe we could retain the trees in that northeast corner. Is that what you're suggesting, or?
No, I mean, I think the trees are already being retained in that northeast corner, if I'm correct. It was just informal play. It's just that the programming for that middle courtyard, I don't want to design it for you, but it's lawn and trees in a shaded area, which doesn't necessarily do very well in full shade. So just a recommendation to look at changing the program in that central courtyard, acknowledging that it is a full shade situation.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Okay, and Dushan, if you could please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm mostly commenting and seconding Kate's and Harry's comments on the building mass. I would also suggest maybe instead of materials and different colors, maybe also to consider staggering a few of these units so they are not in one plane perception, especially from the Nelson Road when we arrive, so we can have a better visual dominance once we arrive to the internal road as well. Also considering the internal planes of the townhouses, those would be good. I think we have space for those to either push back a bit or push in the front. One of the things I also wanted to bring is the dominance of the internal road. I know that there are planted and plant trees next to the building, but maybe there is a possibility of placing some of the trees between the sidewalk and the internal road on that line, and therefore softening the dominance of the internal one, and also just as a precautionary advice to be also careful and maybe to think about the safety on crossing this road, especially when it's 6 meter wide. So that means it's in both ways. And sometimes we can have cars that are not following the direction of the speed limits. So maybe just finding the ways of making sure that it's safe for the residential area inside. I'm also seconding Kate's comments on the central courtyard. It is kind of the unfortunate situation that during the winter time, when we've seen on the solar studies, it will be mostly in the shade, no exposure to the sun. But I would also consider maybe improving the central courtyard with some of the additional amenities for the kids and families, having in mind that most of the property is meant for 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom townhouses and apartments. Therefore, families will be mostly present in this kind of neighborhood. And I think from that side, from my point, that would be all. Other than that, I think it's a very good project. It is on a larger property and a larger scale than the other houses, although I think it's very well implemented according to the context.
Okay, thank you very much, Dushan. Ken? If you thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did have a question of the applicants, very similar to the very first one that Angie had. If I was a resident in the apartment building in one of the west side units, and I wanted to access Nelson Road without using my car, how would I do that?
You would go down to the lobby and either go through the lobby door into the courtyard, or you would exit, there's a side exit door.
Okay,
like a small corridor side exit door.
Okay. So there's nothing that would go directly through those units that front onto Nelson.
No,
we
prioritize the townhomes facing the street frontage over the main lobby of the building.
Okay. All right, that answers that. Thank you.
Yeah.
In looking at this development, like most of our folks, I thought it was an interesting development. I focused my attention on two aspects of it. Firstly, the integration with and the impact on the neighboring areas, the existing neighboring and surrounding areas. And secondly, I did focus a little bit on the potential for developing a sense of community within the development itself. In terms of the surrounding area, what I saw was that it's generally a fairly mature neighborhood with smaller single-family houses and generally mature landscaping. And when I saw the development proposal was suggesting a floor area ratio of 0.7, that struck me as a little bit almost overwhelming by comparison to the surrounding areas. However, my suggestions for consideration include following thoughts. There's perhaps an opportunity to mitigate further the bit of massing effect of the apartment building along Nelson Road by perhaps stepping back the upper floors, and by maybe retaining the existing mature growth, that would help screen the front of the building and help kind of soften and mitigate that bit of massing impact, which I agree. The general design has tended to generally mitigate that massing effect, but perhaps there's room for even a little bit more to do, considering the extent of the development. Some of the other thoughts, I think somebody has already touched on providing sun shading for south and west facing windows, and perhaps even the amenity areas, even in the wintertime. And I was thinking that there might be some benefit perhaps in considering a vehicle turnout bay on Nelson Road in front of the development that would accommodate passenger pickup and drop off. And that ties in a little bit to my question about accessing Nelson Road from other than the fronting units. And then my last thought was to, a couple of other things. Want to suggest that there's a need to ensure adequate vehicle sight lines at the points of exit onto Nelson Road. With 63 units and 108 parking spots, that's potential for a lot of vehicle movement in and out. And I think the sight lines at the exit points might become a little bit contentious. And also, somebody already talked about the pedestrian pathways where they cross. These are the internal pathways where they cross parking areas and the road itself. And that suggestion is that those should be highlighted in some way, whether by paint or signage, but just to ensure that people who are crossing through the development can do so in a safe manner. In terms of the developing the sense of community in the development itself, again, I looked at there's 63 units, 108 parking spaces. That makes for a fair number of people that are going to be living in that area. And my suggestion is that in addition to the proposed amenity areas, some thought be given to how to perhaps promote this sense of community. And some of the things that I thought of were to, again, focusing on the pedestrian walkways, just making sure that that they're evident and leading to all of the amenity areas so that folks know how to get to those amenity areas. And the second suggestion is to perhaps consider developing that courtyard amenity, which I think is a terrific aspect of this development and will be quite unique. But perhaps develop it as a central congregating spot, which could be readily available to all residents, being tucked away kind of in the U of the apartment buildings. The residents in the townhouses might feel that that's not necessarily their space. And so the suggestion was perhaps to do something to encourage people to realize that that's their space as well. And then finally, and there was some thought about the cars traveling on the internal roads, my suggestion is to consider installing roadway speed bumps as a means of traffic calming on those internal roads. I live in a development that's similar in size to this one, and I can tell you that speed limit signs are not nearly as effective as speed road bumps. And I just to finish up, I have no concerns with the requested variances. And that's my comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ken, for the very thoughtful analysis of this project. I appreciate that, and I'm sure everybody else does as well. Councillor Eastmere, please go ahead with your feedback.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward, and I like the mix of units. We certainly need more townhouses and family-friendly housing, so this is important. I appreciate the retained trees on the site. The panel's made really good remarks so far that I appreciate, especially around the pedestrian connections and that, you know, crosswalk over to the children's play area. I was wondering about the differentiation between the units. I do think it looks pretty, uniform, and so mixing that up would be nice. Some color in it would be great to see. I am also looking at the landscape plan and noticing a lot of the little leaf linden trees along the driveways, and linden trees can produce a fair bit of dripping sap and make a bit of a mess, and there's quite a few of them in there with like no alternating between them, so I wondered if maybe swapping that out for something else could be good, or mixing up the plantings and like staggering them so there's a little bit of differentiation there, but I don't know if the linden trees are the best, but I'm also not a landscape architect, so I'm not sure. Other than that, I see the variances and I understand why they're there, and they do make sense to me. So, thank you to the panel for your thoughtful comments so far.
Thank you, Councillor Eastmere. I just wanted to, I just have a couple questions before I add my comments. The road, the internal ring road, it's a two-way road, yes?
No.
It's a one-way road?
Correct.
Okay. And so I think everybody has covered most of what I'd like to add. I guess the only thing I think is interesting about the site, I've walked past there a lot. My child goes to the school there, and I was there today just to look at that site. What surprised me about this particular site is at the very north end, because there's that drop-off, there's quite a nice view there that you don't expect. I've gone down this road 100 times. I would have never expected that there was such a broad vista out the back there, sorry. And so I was wondering if there is a way for the residents of this area to have that, consider that, have a place there where they can enjoy that view, and whether or not any of those areas that were called out on as the amenity areas, whether the children's play area in the northeast corner or the other area in the northwest, had access to some of those views. Sorry, I guess that's not a very well-worded question, but I'm just wondering if that was considered in the plan, if one of those places has a place to sit and enjoy the view.
If I could, Madam Chair and Joyce, I'll jump in. I'm Carl with Momentum Design Build, General Manager and representing the owner. We did consider that, and we looked at building 4 and 5, especially trying to take the view into consideration. We also, our first kick at this was a lot less trees, and it was with that in mind. If we remove the trees, we get the view. But we found through the community and that public information meeting that the trees were more important than that aspect. So could we potentially, underneath some of the canopy there in those amenity spaces, take in the view? I think so still. And that was considered that, okay, we could utilize a bit more of this setback here, really use the natural tree retention in this area. And I feel that would be in the northeast corner of very nice amenity space, which could potentially take in those views.
Thank you very much, Carl, for your comment. I would definitely not recommend taking out any trees in order to accommodate a view. I feel like with the trees already present, I was at the site today and you can see perfectly clear between the trees. It's quite beautiful. I guess the other thought that I wanted to just throw out there and see if it was contemplated along the multifamily building that you have along the north face of it and the south end of that ring road. You have a set of 7 parking stalls that were there. We know we have a few more stalls that are needed. Was there any consideration of maybe removing those 7 stalls, moving the road down, and then preserving a strip of trees in place of those stalls? Is that something that was considered? You can move everything down, is what I'm saying, and you can retain a row of trees along that steep area where, you know, you're prone to erosion and whatever else. So it would help with the topography a little bit.
Yeah, good question. I think really with the tree retention, what we did after that public information meeting was engage Newcastle and our consultant to really look at which areas of trees were the best for retaining. Another thing so this is what our consultant came up with and said, you have the best chance of retaining these specific trees in these specific areas. One of the biggest concerns too that the neighbors in the community had was ensuring that there was enough parking. They said that Nelson really gets busy because of the elementary school, and they're very concerned about people potentially parking on the road. And they were worried about us shorting the parking spaces and not having enough for the development. That was a real concern because they feel that there's so much traffic, especially at like 2, 3 o'clock every school day. So we tried to keep that in mind as well and not reduce too much parking. So we could consider it a bit more, but I do think that trying to pull that ring road down, maybe look at that setback for those building 4 and 5. I'm not sure that that would work best for the rest of the community because of the parking concerns that they have.
Okay, thank you, Carl. I think most of everything has been covered. I'll go and I'll summarize these. It looks like there are 19 recommendations, but I'm going to go through these. I'm going to request that the panel help me out here. Oh, Jessica, yes, please. I am so sorry. Please go ahead, Jessica.
Hi, thank you.
Oh, thank you for raising your hand. I have my list of people, and for some reason I checked you off, and I am so sorry. Please go ahead and provide your feedback. We do want it.
And everyone, the comments have been very thorough, and everybody's really hitting home the cladding details. All of the townhouses around the perimeter are just very stark, and I think we've all hit that home. Let's get some different siding, different colors, different things going on for wayfinding. But my 2 comments that haven't been brought up are, is there required to be EV parking in these types of developments? I didn't see anything, and obviously with the townhomes, I believe perhaps that's on the individual tenant or owner to deal with electric vehicle parking if they want. But what about the apartment building and the multifamily building? Is there electric vehicle parking required? And if not, is it a good idea to provide it? So I guess that's a question for the developer.
Yeah, we will be meeting the requirement, the city's the zoning requirement.
Okay. Did I miss it? Is it, I don't know if I don't understand that annotation, but is it currently on the parking plan, or will it?
Typically we would note it on the cover sheet, but it looks like let's see. It looks like we haven't noted it on there, but we would plan to meet what the requirement would be like that requirement's adjusted a bit over the last few years. So we would plan to meet with the requirement as the current requirement.
Okay, so there is, as per required, going to be EV parking available for the multifamily building.
That's correct.
Okay, great. I would want that to be a recommendation if it wasn't already addressed.
Yeah.
And then my second concern mirrors staff comments, and that is just about this being a big green space, wildlife, birds, all of the things that were there before the building comes. And obviously, every unit has glazing, windows, sliding doors, and such. But I did notice in the architecturals that the guardrails for all of the patios and the balconies are glass. And so maybe as a bird-friendly modification, you could use aluminum pickets or something. It could add interest, color, something different to change up the facades of the buildings as well. But also, it would be more bird-friendly if it wasn't glass. And so those are my only two comments that I hadn't heard come up yet. So I think that I think it's a great building design that really acknowledges the residential neighborhood it's in, the peaked roofs, the massing. It's really lovely. And the variances make sense. So I'm also have no problem supporting the variances to better the entire project. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jessica. And again, apologies. It's a long day. Okay. I'll start listing these off and I'll go through it, and please help me out if there's anything that I was missing. The one staff comment that's been resonating with everybody, so I'll put that as number one, is consider ways to distinguish the buildings and materials for wayfinding in terms of color or materials or sun shading or something to distinguish them. That's the big one that everybody has been really interested in. Number two, consider permeable pavers. Number three, consider rain gardens and other rainwater infiltration methods. Number four, consider connecting the driveways around the townhomes for pedestrian access. Consider reducing the internal road dominance by planting trees between the sidewalk and that internal road. Okay, Dushan, if you could help me, just what you'd like to say for the massing portion that you were describing, if you could summarize it in a sentence.
Yes, just maybe staggering or just playing with the mass itself, so it's not within one plane view over the Nelson Road.
Okay. So staggering the buildings. That would also help with distinguishing them a little bit. Maybe in pairs, you could push them forward and a couple back and a couple forward. Is that what you're thinking?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Great. Okay, number 7. Accentuate the family-friendly amenities of the central courtyard. I suppose that would be. Okay, number 8, consider stepping back the upper floors along Nelson Road. Number 9, consider retaining the mature growth along Nelson Road. This kind of plays back to number 1, but I'll put it as a separate point because it was mentioned as a separate item and by different people. So number 10, consider sun shading specifically on the south and west facing windows. Number 11, consider vehicle pickup and drop-off location. Number 12, ensure vehicle adequate sight lines at that intersection. Number 13, there should be a pedestrian crossing and it should be lit up or otherwise highlighted to make it safe. Uh, 14, consider connecting pedestrian walkways to amenity areas to promote a sense of community. Uh, 15, install speed bumps on the internal road. Number 16, consider changing out the little leaf linden trees, either alternating or change it. Consider, just revisit those so that we can, with the landscape architect, if you don't mind. Okay. Number 17, consider changing the glazed balconies to something bird-friendly, whether it's aluminum pickets or fritted glass or something else. And number 18, consider removing a couple stalls in favor of keeping some of the old growth trees. Did I miss anything from anyone? Is there anything anybody would like to add from panel? Okay. Thank you very much. That's 18 recommendations in total. I didn't hear any objections, and actually, in fact, lots of support for the 3, for the variances. So I think we'll put our support behind that. So again, that is 19 recommendations. And can I have a motion to accept this project as presented with those 19 recommendations, as well as support for the variances? Harry and seconder Kate, and all in favor, can everybody? Okay. Thank you again, Joyce Truce and team, for the very thoughtful presentation. We look forward to seeing this project come together and keeping as many trees as we can. And we don't have any other business this evening, so if I could have a motion to adjourn this meeting. Harry, seconder, Jessica, Angie, Kate, everybody. Thank you very much, and thank you again for your presentation.